What is up, guys? Good morning. Welcome, Crypto FUD. And let's do this. Flip, what's going on, brother? What's going on, bro? You are correct. Powell is talking. He is going to be talking in about 10 minutes. So we'll definitely, we'll see what he has to say here. Good morning, brother. All right, well, let's just jump right into this, guys. So we got a couple things to cover. Like I said, market's going to be opening up in about 9 minutes. Powell is actually going to be talking. Coffee and getting ready for the gym. Nice. I just got back. So Powell's going to be talking literally conveniently right after the market opens up. So let's see how this is going to play out. A lot of people, I don't think he's going to announce that he's resigning right now, but he is. We've been covering this. He is under massive pressure to start reducing rates, and this isn't just coming from Trump. This is coming from across the board everywhere. So definitely wouldn't be surprised if he is being very much persuaded to start making some at least some dovish announcements in regards to upcoming rates being reduced. So right now, looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin right now is sitting at 106,540, or I'm sorry, 554. We did see a little bit of a move towards the downside as of yesterday. We were kind of hanging around in that 107,400 area, somewhere around there. And then we saw, as of this morning, last night, a nice little drop in the markets. Looking at futures, let me switch over to the futures for... let's see here. I got so much shit going on. Let's see here. What am I looking at here? Oh, man. Sorry. I got so many freaking screens up here. Where are we at? You know what? I'll just pull it up over here. Sure, we're good to go. And okay. Sheesh. So looking at the futures for right now, you can see the S&P right now making new highs this morning and last night. The S&P absolutely ripping. It closed yesterday at around 6,200, and right now, the futures. I think the futures has closed until the market opens up, but we're at 62.37. So a nice move towards the upside, a continuation of all-time highs for the S&P. You can see this was the tariff scare, right? And whoever bought this dip took advantage of it. Nice move towards the upside, as some of the media was sitting here trying to portray, the markets, they were done, we're over with, and boom, look at that. A few weeks later, 2 months later, markets are literally making all-time highs for the S&P, and this will roll over eventually over to Bitcoin, so be ready. Be ready. Hold on here, man. Something's wrong here. Okay, now I see. Flip said, what is the euro and the dollar doing? Well, right now, let's see here. The euro is technically up because the dollar is dropping, I believe, right? Yeah, dollar is dropping slightly. We're at $96 right now. Let's pull the euro up. You can see the dollar is on a free fall right now, which is technically a good thing for the markets, right? Usually you see the DXY dropping. You're going to see the markets, stock market, anything risk on assets. Usually this tends to see that people are jumping out of the dollar and jumping into riskier assets like the stock market and Bitcoin. Shout out to Flip with the $10 super chat, bro. I appreciate that. Rip a Cuban espresso for me, bro. Been grinding for us. I appreciate it, bro. I'll drink dude, how do you know I have Cuban coffee in the house, bro? How do you know that? You know what we do in Tampa? If you come down to one of the Cuban shops, you can either get a café con leche, which is basically a coffee with milk, right? Or you can take they take the straight coffee shots, right? And you're not even supposed to put any sugar, nothing in there. You just take it like a shot. Massive caffeine, like boom. I can see you doing that, Flip. I appreciate the $10 super chat, brother. I really do. But yeah, the dollar's dropping, which is great. Euro's actually climbing, right? So you're seeing a lot of people exiting the dollar, people jumping into the euro, riskier assets. Gold today is actually up as well. Look at that. Gold's doing a great job. Looks like, did gold make all-time highs? Are we sleeping on gold here? Let me see here. Gold made all-time highs, I think, yesterday, bro. Hold on here. Let me backtrack. It did. Holy crap. I missed that. Yeah, I mean, definitely, I agree we should be moving up. Gold actually made the all-time highs. It looks like, when was this? Oh, this was the other, okay. I'm looking at the weekly. I'm like, what the this happened yesterday? No, it happened like 8 weeks ago. But you can see last week, gold jumped up to about 34. Right now, gold's trying to come back up. It looks, I mean, it's holding pretty strong at these support levels. So I wouldn't be surprised if gold starts rallying as well, given that the dollar's dropping. But we're not too focused on gold, because if gold's going up, tends to be that people are usually scared in the market and they're moving their money over there. So we'll see how this plays out. We have 3 minutes. Let me see if Powell's actually talking. Let me see. I'll put this on the screen actually, so we can so we don't miss it. Shrink this up though. I'm just leaving this on the screen. Put it down there. So when he starts talking, we'll jump in on it. So let's just jump into a couple things. We have like 2 more minutes. Looking at the crypto bubbles for today, that's for the week. Looking at the daily for today, you can see red across the board. We have Pengu up. Algorand not doing too bad. What else? Bitcoin Cash still actually making its way up. Usually when you see Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum Classic moving, they tend to be early movers, indicating that something is cooking in the back end, guys. I'm telling you, mark my words. I wouldn't be surprised in the next week or two we're actually moving up. I actually closed my my short that I had yesterday. I closed it this morning with like a 40%, 40% profit. Jumped out, just because I'm anticipating that the markets are most likely going to be moving towards the upside as we move. And one thing I wanted to point out was, you can see on this chart here, you can see July historically tends to be a solid month, right? Obviously, you can see some years we will have some red in the markets, but you can see, and for whatever reason, this chart doesn't show us the years, but you can see obviously the year that we're in right now, 2025, we've obviously started off, we're a 0.5% down from the drop this morning, but looking at like last year, 3%. You go back 4 years ago, 17%, 18%, 24%, 20%, 18%, right? So if you really count, other than right now, because this hasn't really closed, but if you look 1, 2, 3, 4 years out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years, 9 of them have been in the green. And I mean solid green too, usually for July. I mean, you see some of these months or some of these years, we've been up 20+%. So we'll see how this plays out. This is 2025. 24, 23, 22, 21, right? 2021, July closed up 18%. 2020, it closed to the 24%, right? So you can see, like I've been telling you guys, 2024 is like our 2020. 2025 most likely is going to be like our 2021, as I still do predict that we are going to top out towards the end of this year. That's what my predictions are as of now, but we'll see. I see some people calling for 2026, which is to me a little crazy, but we'll see how this plays out. But let's see here. A couple things that I want to cover. What do we have? Jerome Powell should be talking. You guys can see on the screen he's not up yet. So as soon as he starts talking, we'll see. Let's see what the markets. They just opened up actually. Let's see here. The S&P actually just dropped. Let me see. Yep. So you can see the S&P dropped slightly. Nothing too crazy. On the 30-minute, looks like it has some support. All right. Looks like Jerome Powell's actually about to start talking, guys. So let's we're gonna jump in as soon as this finishes up. Oh, no music. No music, sir. As soon as he gets on stage, we'll talk. In the meantime, let's see here. S&P, a little bit of a bounce. Bitcoin starting to make its way back up. That's why I closed this long down here. We dropped down to, what was it, 106.2, 106, yeah, 106.3. I caught it around 106.4 on that short. So a couple articles. Will the SEC approve Grayscale's 5 crypto spot ETFs? Let's see here. So live updates before July 2nd deadline as Bitcoin ETFs record a 15-day of inflows. So if you guys aren't familiar, it looks like we have five cryptos that are basically coming up, potentially going to get some kind of a decision by tomorrow in regards to if they're going to be able to get potentially a spot ETF. I know we talked about this like months ago. I'm trying to figure out which ones they actually are. Let's see here. So Grayscale started a digital large cap fund conversion journey back in 2024 with the first Bitcoin spot ETF approved. The firm goal is transformed to the GDLC fund, which now tracks a mix of 5 crypto assets in various weights into a spot ETF. So far, the SEC has not decided on a matter, but after the largest amendment submitted by Grayscale, the monetary watchdog has until Wednesday, July 2nd, to issue a statement. Keep up the latest updates, blah, 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 blah. Which ones were they? I forgot which ones they were. Let's see here. So Bitcoin ETF records over 2 weeks of straight inflows as altcoin ETF excitement grows. So you can see 15 straight days of Bitcoin ETFs, $4.7 billion added, 3.8 of that into BlackRock's IBIT alone. Let's see here. And all while Bitcoin chills 5% below all-time highs, no hype, no mania, just steady institutional demand. Retail is quiet. Ethereum ETFs just launched. Macros heating up. It says, this is as of earlier, it says rumors are flying the SEC is to approve Grayscale's XRP ETF. I want to pull up XRP. Let's see if they're, XRP was running yesterday. Remember, it was up. It was actually up 5% as of yesterday. It is slightly down right now, but still holding in this consolidation zone. Someone's coming to the podium. As soon as Jerome Powell comes on there, I'll silence myself and we'll see what he's got to say. If he's going to be spewing a bunch of boring shit, though, we're not going to listen to it. I want to hear him come out and effectively resign as of today. And then before that, he reduces interest rates 200 points. Let's see what this lady has to say.
A policy panel. The world economy is undergoing a period of rapid and intense change. The questions of our next panel, the questions for our next panel will cover what these fundamental shifts mean for the future of monetary policy. And we are honoured to have an exceptional lineup of officials to answer them. We are also honoured to have Francine Lacroix, anchor and editor-at-large at Bloomberg Television, to be guiding the conversation. Francine, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone.
I'm only looking
Claire,
for Jerome Powell.
thank you so much for that introduction. What can I say? We have 1 hour and there's a lot to discuss. So welcome to the policy panel, Sintra 2025. Now, from tariff-related trade ructions to oil price gyrations, caused by also Middle East hostilities, there are many questions on, first of all, how to handle the fallout from some of the political decisions, but much more how the economy behaves. Now, 1 year on since the last Sintra panel, and of course halfway through 2025, global policy needs to navigate risks posed both to inflation and growth, a challenge highlighted by the Bank for International Settlements in a report this week. So let's get started. We have 1 hour. Kazuo Ueda, Governor, Bank of Japan. Of course, our host, Christine Lagarde, of the European Central Bank President. We have Jay Powell, Chair, Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. We have Chang Yong-ri, Governor, Bank of Korea, and then Andrew Bailey, Governor for the Bank of England. Madame Lagarde, let's start with you as our host. So first of all, thank you so much for having us all here. We had a little bit of data today, this morning, consumer prices rising some 2% from a year ago, up from May's 1.9%. But then the tariffs still loom large. So how do you see that developing?
Well, first of all, I would note that we are at 2%. And this is the latest reading. This is also the target that we have had, and this is the projection that our staff is indicating for the medium term, which is exactly what we had anticipated. So I'm not saying mission accomplished, but I say target
at least back
reached.
To where we were at yesterday.
Okay? And I think we should start by recognizing that. We faced a massive amount of shocks, compounded shocks occasionally, and we are now through that disinflationary process that we have conducted over the last 2 years. And yes, we are facing a lot of uncertainty. Yes, we are facing the risk of fragmentation increasing. And yes, we are facing geopolitical developments that are worrying generally, but that also are causing two-side risk to inflation. So we have to continue to be extremely vigilant. We have to continue to be committed to delivering on our target. And I think we are at this point in time in a very good position to do that. So we are well equipped to navigate the tormented waters that we should anticipate.
Chair Powell, tariffs are not yet showing up in inflation. Is this forcing you or your staff to actually rethink what the models say about how much the tariffs will ultimately through some of the final prices?
So thank you, Francine. And Christine, thank you to you and your colleagues for putting on another great conference here today. It's been a pleasure. I guess I would start, if I may, by saying that the U.S. economy is in a pretty good position. Inflation has come down close to 2%. We're at 2.3 headline, 2.7 core. The unemployment rate is at 4.2%, so we're healthy overall. If you ignore the tariffs for a second, inflation is behaving pretty much exactly as we have expected and hoped that it would. We haven't seen effects much yet from tariffs, and we didn't expect to by now. We've always said that the timing, amount, and persistence of the inflation would be highly uncertain, and it's certainly improved that. So we're watching. We expect to see over the summer some readings, higher readings, but we're prepared to learn that it can be higher or lower or later or sooner than we'd expected.
But, Chair, would the Fed have cut more by now if it weren't for the tariffs?
So I think that's right. In effect, we went on hold when we saw the size of the tariffs and essentially all inflation forecasts for the United States went up materially as a consequence of the tariffs.
He had to take the tie off.
We didn't overreact. In fact, we didn't react at all. We're simply taking some time. As long as the U.S. economy is in solid shape, we think the prudent thing to do is to wait and learn more and see what those effects might be. And again, they haven't really shown up. So we're waiting.
Governor Rhee, South Korea's economy is, of course, highly reliant on trade, putting aside the deals that each government could strike with the Trump administration. What can central banks, in your position, do to shield economies from the impact of trade tariffs?
Actually,
I'm going to mute it. What we'll do is we'll come back to this if Powell starts talking again, all right? But look at that. Powell starts talking, and look at that. Nice little move towards the downside. He just can't come out and just be like, listen, we messed up. You know, we should have reduced rates a long time ago. We're going to start reducing rates at small increments, right? He can't do it. He can't do it. All they can say every time they ask, because I mean, think about it. How many times has he been asked that same question in the last like month or two, right? Just in the last month or two, from any of his FOMC meetings and stuff like that, it's the same question, and he keeps saying, what does he rely on? He keeps backing it up with, well, uncertainty and tariffs, right? Uncertainty and tariffs. And it's just like, bro, we know, yes, tariffs are going to affect somewhat, but it is not going to drive inflation up, in my opinion. So it's insane that he keeps like leaning on to tariffs for the reason why he's not reducing interest rates, when you guys already know, and I'm not going to go through it again. I already went through that rant, a few weeks ago, cursing him out because this guy reduced interest rates right before the election, right? And then for the last 7 months, he hasn't done anything but kick the can down the road, which is a complete, in my opinion, it was a political move, in my opinion. So, but, they say that they're not, towards any side, which it is what it is. I just think at the end of the day, whether you lean left, you lean right, it doesn't matter. I think we all have come to an agreement that it's time to start reducing rates, right? It's been time. Flip, what do you guys call him? Mr. Too Late? I'm just messing with you, bro. I'm messing with you. So let's just jump into some other things. I'm keeping an eye on another screen. If Jerome Powell comes back out, we definitely will bring him up. You can see fear and greed right now. We're basically right in the middle, right? Half the market is basically, half the market's bullish, half the market's bearish is how I look at it, right? We're kind of in a good spot where Bitcoin sitting at above 106,000. We're in neutral right now, meaning we're not overcooked, we're not overbought, we're not oversold. We're kind of in this beautiful spot where right when things start swinging towards the right direction, aka interest rates start getting reduced, whatever the case may be, right? You guys know how it is. 1 week, it just takes a good announcement or something like that, and the markets start rallying. Good trade deals or whatever on the tariffs, something like that can be in favor where the markets could easily start rallying very fast. And the fact that we could be potentially starting at a starting point above 106,000, I think there's a lot of room for us to easily make all-time highs. And going back to this, you guys can see, I wouldn't be surprised if you look at history. We have, history on our side where July tends to close on a solid green, percentage towards the upside. So we'll see how it is. I don't necessarily believe that the rest of this year is going to be green, though, right? I do think that if we are going to see some kind of a top towards the end of the year, October, November, potentially December, I think it's going to be most likely October or December. We're probably going to see like August and September, maybe like a choppy, where we're not like deep in the red, but we're definitely not deep in the green. We're kind of just like consolidating for maybe July and August, and then we start rallying up towards September, October, something like that, mimicking 2021, right? So your guess is as good as mine. I've been telling you guys this for the last few months. Honestly, it feels like for the last like 8 months, even before we got into 2025, that we're most likely going to be staying on that 4-year cycle, mimicking 2021. So, damn Jerome Powell. We were just starting to get some things cooking. I shouldn't have closed my freaking short. I should have never closed that short knowing that Jerome Powell was coming out. I should have, right? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. You guys can see right now, let's update this and see if maybe something's changed. But as of the July FOMC meeting, it looks like it's starting to move towards a pause again, right? And I say that because yesterday, if you guys remember yesterday's stream, this was at like 75%. I think it was like in the 70s for sure, but it's definitely starting to tick up to where 80% of the market now, 80+% of the market is calling for some kind of just a pause again. September seems to be where everyone's thinking, okay, Jerome Powell is probably going to pay tough guy one more FOMC meeting, and then September is when he's basically going to be forced to start reducing interest rates. And you can see basically 90% of the market is calling for some kind of a reduction in interest rates. So, and that's in September, July. I still do think that something's going to change, and there could be. I honestly think this is going to fluctuate to where this is going to be more like a 60-40. 60% of the market's going to maybe potentially think that we're going to see a pause, and 40% potentially thinking that we're going to see some kind of just a quarter basis point reduction in July is where I think it's going to kind of even out. But who knows as of now? Who freaking knows? So look at this.
You all are doing basically what MicroStrategy did with Ether.
Tom Lee, this guy's been
purchases that you
so
buy
this guy
through
right
this,
here, you
set
can
this
see
whole thing
he's
up
going to
like
be the
this. You wanna
chairman of
explain a little bit?
Bitmine
Yeah, glad
Technologies.
to. I'm still a big fan of Bitcoin because I think it is digital gold. But what we've seen in the last really in 2025 is the financial services industry and crypto are converging, and it really started with stablecoins, which is the ChatGPT of crypto, right? Because it's viral adoption by consumers, businesses, banks, and now even Visa. Underneath the stablecoin industry is Ethereum. That is really like the backbone and architecture of stablecoins. So it's important to create a project that essentially accumulates Ethereum to essentially protect and have some influence on the network. So that's why we're creating this treasury vehicle to buy Ethereum. The more Ethereum that's accumulated, the more secure the network is. And I think it's also sort of the architecture that future banks will have. When Goldman issues a stablecoin and JP Morgan doing it on Ethereum, as a layer one blockchain, they're going to want to secure it by staking Ethereum. So we're trying to get in front of that by creating a treasury vehicle.
You guys hear that? Looks like a lot of institutions might be shifting over to Ethereum. I said this the other day. I said, watch. I think Jerome Powell's talking, is he?
FOMC participants do expect that it will become appropriate later this year to begin to reduce rates again. And so,
did you hear that?
And that will depend, though, as Christine just mentioned, on the incoming data. We'll be monitoring particularly what does show up in terms of inflation or what does not show up, and also carefully watching the labor market. We watch very carefully for signs of unexpected weakness. We see a gradual cooling, but we don't really see that yet. So those are the things we'll be watching. But as I mentioned, a majority of us do feel that will be appropriate in the remaining 4 meetings of the year to begin to reduce rates again.
Madame Lagarde, the euro has also surged about 12% against the dollar so far this year. Are you concerned that its strength runs counter to your efforts to also loosen financial conditions?
I'm not going to comment on the exchange rate. We take it into account for purposes of our projections. Obviously, it has an impact, but it's a reflection.
Well, Powell said some good things right there, saying they're waiting for some kind of they're waiting for a weak labor market, right? And just so happens we have the unemployment that's going to be dropping actually on Thursday on the 3rd. We talked about this the other day. If I can freaking pull it up here. JOLTS job openings. There we go. So on the 3rd, which is the day before, obviously, our holiday, Friday, the markets will be closed. Not crypto, obviously, but the stock market. Jay, what's going on, brother? So basically what Jerome Powell, and he's talking again, darn it.
About that, but I wouldn't take any meeting off the table or put it directly on the table. It's going to depend on how the data evolve.
Governor, what's the biggest risk stemming from protectionist trade policy, actually, for the global economy and for South Korea?
We'll mute him.
Can you just... The biggest risk stemming from...
Sheesh. So unemployment is dropping on the 3rd, which is basically Thursday. And you can see what Jerome Powell was just talking about. Basically, what they're looking for is unemployment to go up a little bit more. Before, you guys remember, this was part of me bitching the other day, was that initially the feds were calling for 4% unemployment rate for them to feel comfortable reducing interest rates. Well, we hit 4%, right? They moved the goalpost to 4.2. We hit 4.2. Now they've moved the goalpost to around 4.4% is what they're looking for some kind of an unemployment rate for them to feel comfortable reducing interest rates. And like I said, they keep kicking the can down with the tariffs, uncertainty, and unemployment. Well, I talk about this because unemployment is going to be coming out in 2 days from now on Thursday, July the 3rd. And you can see for the last few months, unemployment's been stagnant. It's been stagnant at a 4.2% rate. Well, you can see it's actually supposed to be ticking up to around 4.3%, which is nothing crazy, right? But it is starting to tick up towards the upside. As I don't know about you guys, but all I hear whenever when I'm focused and I'm looking at the economy, Microsoft, Amazon, FedEx, I'm trying to think of all these big tech companies that have hit close to home, even for myself, have laid off by the thousands of people, right? Citing AI is really the biggest driver. A lot of these companies don't need certain positions anymore because AI has simplified and basically taken over a lot of these positions. So you're seeing unemployment, I think, as these next unemployment numbers drop, this one coming out on Thursday, and even next month and towards the end of the year, you're probably going to see unemployment, in my opinion, probably spike up to a little bit over 4.5%, in my opinion, before it really tops out. But hopefully it doesn't get any higher than that, because this was one thing that the feds were talking about like 6 months ago, was unemployment, if you guys remember, went from like 3.5% up to 4% in literally like 2 months. It spiked fast, right? And the Fed started to get a little worried because with unemployment, it can spiral out of control to where there's like, it takes a while for things to kind of get back to normalized, right? And then you're thinking unemployment, it's going up a tick here, tick there. Those are hundreds of thousands of jobs. Those are hundreds of thousands of people that are now unemployment that are potentially collecting unemployment, essentially, right? So that starts to weigh in on the economy. So they definitely don't want to, it to spiral out of control, but at the same time, it's a big indicator, right? And you're wondering, why would they want unemployment to spike for them to feel comfortable reducing interest rates? Well, what it is that when you see more people not working, that means the demand for goods, the demand for a bunch of crap that we all buy as Americans, right? TVs and a bunch of shit that we don't need, the demand's going to come down, which means inflation will come down, because it's all about supply and demand, right? More people want it, more people have money to buy it, the higher the price is going to go up because the demand is up. So with the fact that unemployment is starting to spike, they see the demand would essentially come down for basically everything. Houses, cars, you name it. So, and Jerome Powell's talking again.
Policy stance is having the effects we expect and want on the economy. And to me, I would say we're somewhere probably modestly restrictive at this level. And by some formulations, we're more restrictive.
But
if you look at the economy, growth has been solid. The labor market is solid and still at historically low levels of unemployment. It's not an economy that feels like it's suffering from very tight monetary policy, but I would say that policy is still restrictive.
President Lagarde?
I would say that it's a nice concept, it's interesting, and many of the terribly talented and brilliant economists in this room actually are delighted with discussion about the neutral rate. But honestly, as we're getting closer to target and to where we should be, or are where we should be, and I don't want to pass judgment on that, I think that discussion becomes less relevant. I think what our staff at the ECB measures leads us to believe that it is higher than where it was before the great financial crisis, but it's relatively low as well, compared, for instance, with what the US neutral rate is at the moment. But it's, in a way, it's a bit of an illusion to discuss that at the moment, because the neutral rate is normally defined in a world where there is no shock, where you have perfect equilibrium. Now, are we in a world with no shocks at the moment? I don't think so. So it's nice to have as a concept, nice to elaborate on it, nice to do research on it, but to use it at the moment where we are as a guiding principle to where we should be, I don't think is particularly appropriate.
Andrew Bailey?
Well, that sort of continues what I was saying earlier. Again, I don't use it as a sort of a guide to where policy should be.
You see here, look at this.
But I think this whole concept of restrictiveness...
Who's going to get rich in quarter three?
...is, of course, critical to our judgment.
That's
because that's critical to the transmission mechanism of policy, which we have to judge every time we meet. So that's a judgment that, in a sense, we renew every meeting we have. I think I'd rather agree with what Jay was just saying.
Breaking news.
Yeah, in our case, policy is restrictive at the moment. It's going to become less...
Bro, look at this. Breaking news. Trump asked about deporting Elon Musk, says he have to take a look at it. Oh my gosh. Everybody's calling for a quarter three, bro. Look at this. Hopefully quarter three is truly it. Look at this chart. This chart right here shows Bitcoin's price. And you see with the blue right here, this blue is actually whale addresses purchasing Bitcoin. And look at this thing has spiked up. And I think what they consider a whale is any wallet that holds 1,000 Bitcoin or more would be considered a whale. And you can see, look at the activity has spiked since we've kind of broken above this 100,000 level. Isn't that crazy? And this goes, like we always talk about, like retail, again, is going to be late to the party, right? Well, most retail going to be late to the party while all this institutional money has been just accumulating. Michael Saylor, BlackRock. I mean, you see even GameStop, all these big companies, either mid or enormous companies, even countries, right? Purchasing Bitcoin. And a lot of other things. They're not just buying Bitcoin, right? Because just like we just talked about, these ETFs, we're supposed to get some kind of a decision tomorrow if they're at least going to start, exercising, the opportunity of them being approved this year. Because remember, even if they do get approved, the announcement or the decision doesn't get announced, I believe, until October of this year, which is creeping up. That's in 4 or 5 months from now, right? But a lot of these, I guarantee. Some of these ETFs will get approved, and I'm saying like probably Solana and XRP will most likely be the two that we'll see getting approved for this year. I'm sure like something else, I forgot the 5 that are like Litecoin was another one. I don't know if I see Litecoin getting approved. It could, but something like XRP and Solana for sure, I could see getting some kind of an approval for a ETF for this year. So, but what I'm getting to is you have big money that is just, they're not focused on this. Like right now, we're looking at the 5 minute. They don't care about the fluctuations in price right now, other than if there's any dips, Saylor just keeps buying. We talked about this yesterday, right? Saylor bought another $500 million worth of Bitcoin yesterday, right? Dude's not worried about the freaking price right now. He's just accumulating because what he sees is long term. There's only a certain amount of Bitcoin that's ever going to exist, right? So why focus on the price? He's focused on how many Bitcoin he can acquire before it's all, gone, pretty much, essentially, right? And he knows that down the road, Bitcoin we already know now it is a store of value, right? It's basically digital gold, right? If he's holding a vast majority of it or a vast amount of it, he knows that people eventually are going to be coming to him to buy Bitcoin, and he'll be able to set the price, on what he wants to sell down the road, if he even wants to sell, and I'm sure it's going to be just like that for BlackRock. And, don't think of like countries like China. China holds 200,000 Bitcoin. The United States holds 200,000 Bitcoin. A lot of these countries, We've talked about it before. Bahrain, El Salvador. You know, we can go down the list. Obviously, it varies on the amount, but a lot of these countries are slowly but surely acquiring Bitcoin, and not just Bitcoin, guys. Ethereum, I think, is going to be the next big player that they're probably going to start acquiring at mass quantities, and XRP and Solana as well down the road. Craig, what's going on, brother? Craig said, if I remember correctly, July 21st wasn't that great, but I can't really remember. Let's go back to that freaking chart. This is the S&P. S&P again. I want to look at the S&P real quick. 2021. These were monthly returns, I'm guessing, by the percent. Look at that. July is always freaking, no matter even if we're in a bull or bear market for the S&P. That's crazy. I was contemplating, because the S&P's been hitting all-time highs. I do have like a lot of money in the S&P. I was like contemplating if I'm going to be not selling off, but maybe looking like, because I think this year we're probably going to see a $6,500 S&P, in my opinion. And I'm wondering if there's got to be a point where I think we're going to hit our head and have somewhat of a small dip. I definitely want to take advantage of it, because I do hold, believe it or not, technically right now I have more S&P than I even have in the crypto and in all my crypto assets, believe it or not. I was looking at it yesterday. I was like, oh, wow. Right. Given it's my 401k and I do, contribute to it every month, I do slowly add to it. And in the last 10 years, it's accumulated a lot. So Craig, if you go back to 2021, right? So 2025, 24, 23, 22, 21, it says right here, bro, we were up 18%, bro. 18% in 2021. Well, actually, let's pull it up on the charts and see if we can. I'm going to have to pull up a different chart. Well, you know what? Let's leave this chart here. And let's bear with me here. I'm sure this is on the screen. It is. To find a chart that I haven't freaking docked up. It's hard to when all these support levels and shit. Let's just use this one. Daily. Nah, let's use a freaking fresh chart. Here we go. All right, so if you go back, Craig, 2021 July, right? You are correct. So you know what, Craig? You are correct, bro. And this is actually, I should know this by the freaking the back of my hand. Remember, this was the dip that I always tell you guys about. That was in 2021, where everybody was all the beginner investors were running for the hills, right? Bitcoin had just come off of all-time highs at the beginning of the year, and we had dropped over 50% around May, April. When did we start? Yeah, we started May, June, and then July, right? And you can see July, half of July, we actually, I'm not going to say bottomed out, because we did technically make a lower bottom over in June, but July, we actually did have a close to the bottom right here. And then look, it was basically the first 3 weeks of July was hell. It really was. You can see we basically cratered, but look at the last week of July. We shot up, and we ended up, that's why if you look at this chart right here, it says that we were up 18%, because we started the year off, or started the month off, we were down like crazy. You can see by the time July ended, which was basically right here, this is where July ended in 2021, we were up, right? You can see July started right, where did we start in July? Right here on this candle. So you can see from there to here, it says 19% right there, right? So this was basically the month of July. It was hell for the first 3 weeks, dude. The last 7 or 8 days, we freaking shot up. Let's see how much we moved in that 1 month. Holy crap, we shot up 40%, bro, in 8 days. That's epic. That's probably one of the biggest moves for Bitcoin in an 8-day span. Craig said I was buying all the Shiba in June and July of 2021. That's why I remember it. Hell yeah, I remember, bro. Now, I mean, I don't really, like, I remember I was in the same position where I was actually buying Shiba. This was probably right before Shiba started to take off. I don't know what happened because I had already come off the Dogecoin train, made my bread off Doge, was buying the shit out of Ethereum during these dips. And I remember, like, just one day I was like, bro, I kept hearing about Shiba, but it hadn't, like, gone mainstream yet. And I ended up picking up a bag of Shiba. And you guys already know my story on Shiba. I won't even bring it up. I mean, I made money, but that's why they always say Crypt sells too early. Crypt sells too early. Well, if you would have dealt with what I went through during Shiba, I ran that bitch up 15x and watched it all go, watch it all come down. I did not sell, and I was like, I'm never going to do that again, bro. That's why everybody on the stream's like, oh, Crypt probably sold too early. I secured profits is how I look at it. That's what I did. Look at this. We broke up to 107. Yeah, bro. I was up 15x on my Shiba position. And I'm like an idiot just letting it sit there, and it starts dropping and dropping and dropping. And then by the time I sell it, like a week later, I made like a 2x, you know? So I still made money, but it was nothing compared to where I was at just a week before when I was up literally 15x on my Shiba position. So that's why I'm telling everybody, like, not financial advice, but I'm like, dude, if you're up 10, 15x, bro, I was like, I understand you see all these, like, YouTubers, come spend the day with me, a millionaire, crypto meme coin millionaire. You know, I'm not saying that they're not, you know, telling the truth, but these guys, you know, ended up just, it's all about positioning yourself at the right time, right moment, right? And these guys miraculously jumped in on a meme coin, you know, at the proper time on their pump fund scams and whatever the hell, you know, and they turned $1,000 into $10 million. That shit is not common. That's very rare, right? But if you are up 10x, which all of you will experience that at some point, you'll be up 10x, and you're still going to be having that FOMO of the fear of missing out of more gains, right? And then what happens is you end up selling at a freaking, not a loss, but you end up selling, losing majority of those gains because you were wanting to turn your $100 into $10 million because you saw somebody else do that, right? So turning that $100 into $1,000 or $2,000 is just not enough for you, right? You want more. But I think in the long scope of things, speaking logical, and I'm just saying 100. I know a lot of us are investing a lot more money, but what I'm saying is something like that, even a $100 move and you turn it into $1,000, bro, that is a win. Take that win, and now you have $1,000 to do it all over again, right? On something else. You know, that's what it is. It's all about baby steps. So then maybe you can get yourself in a position where you can throw $500 on one of these stupid pump fund, you know, projects that just drop, and you freaking 1000x that. And now you're on YouTube, you know, buying Porsches and Lambos, right? Win Lambo. But after that whole Shiba thing, I was like, bro, I am definitely, you know, I'm going to definitely secure the bag at all costs, right? I'm not going to, you know, sell for very micro profits, but at the same time, if I'm up, you know, solid, I'm taking the profits. I'm not even looking back at, oh, I could have made so much more money. It is what it is. Sometimes it's sickening, you know, when I look back at some of the shit that I sold too early, right? It is sickening, but, you know, it is what it is, right? You live to fight another day. You can't go broke taking profits, guys. You can't go broke taking profits. So let's go back into this meeting and see what Jerome Powell has to say here.
Because obviously we have learnt a lot about the robustness of supply chains over the last 5 years, And it is, of course, appropriate that there will be adjustments to that. But if we see a breakdown of the openness of the world economy sort of beyond that,
Bitcoin's finally back
sort
up
of
above
resilience that we do
107K,
see as
which is
needed,
great.
then that's bad for activity, it's bad for the world economy, and that I'm afraid is something
You
that
check my degens.
I think we need to be very clear. I've said a number of times that there are reasons why this is happening.
Sometimes while I'm streaming, I'm
But
like
it's
missing
not
out on a
right
lot
to
of
just
these
go around
plays 'cause I'm
saying
reading news and
this,
stuff.
this is all wrong. There are no reasons why this is happening. What I think is very important is that we get back to a governance of the world economy where we can address
Fart
these
House
issues
took a fart.
in the appropriate
Is this a play
multilateral
right here?
fora.
Oh, speaking of
And
tonight,
get to the question of what lies behind these
for
issues.
my
What's at the
members, we
roots
are
of
going to
these
be going
issues?
into
What
the
exactly
trenches
are the
tonight, guys. So
issues?
be ready. We're going
And
into
what
the
we
trenches
do
tonight. We're going to
about
have
them.
a
I
evening
I
stream.
can't
We're
emphasize
basically
this
going to be
enough,
doing
that I think
live
it's an
streaming,
obligation
or
for all of
I'm
us
sorry,
who are
live
obviously very
trading.
heavily
Obviously,
involved
we're going to be
in
streaming, but we're going
governance
to be
of the
jumping
world
into the
economy. We've all
trenches,
got very big
going into the
responsibilities. To say that is our duty.
going into the pump buns and going
to
into the
get
decks
back
hard,
and to the
picking up
process of
plays,
saying,
moving them
what
fast. So if you
caused
guys are
this,
interested,
and what
hit
do
that
we do
join
about it,
button.
and what do we
It's like
deduce are the
$4.99 to join,
underlying
and
issues,
we're
and
going to
how
be
do we
doing
address
this
them? Because
weekly,
otherwise,
multiple times on
say
top of we
fragmenting
do
the world
have
economy is a bad
our
outcome.
weekly
But what kind of
member
fragmentation
streams
would it be? Is it again
for leverage and
are
all
you
kinds of
fearful
stuff.
that
So
the
if
world
that's
is
something you're interested, jump in.
splintering
We are going to be doing
irrevocably,
that tonight.
or is there a pool that's just moving?
Well, I think if it was a breakdown of trade in the world economy, obviously exactly how that would manifest itself would remain to be seen. But it would be running against a long period now where we've been building the resilience of trade in the world economy. We've been building openness. But as I said, I want to sort of temper that by saying, look, there are issues. I don't think we should say there are no issues. This is all made up. There are issues, and we need to address what they are and work them out. But we need to do that in the context of a commitment to a robust open world economy.
Governor Riaz, as the only governor here representing
right?
a non-reserve currency country, how concerned are you about fragmentation of the global financial system and the risk at the end of the day that the U.S. may be less willing to provide dollar liquidity in a future financial shock?
No. But I think I mentioned that we are quite vulnerable to the fragmentation. But in reality, as a small country, it's a pity that we can raise our voice, but in reality,
all these people, if you're wondering, these are all basically equivalencies of our Jerome Powell. This guy, this gentleman's from South Korea, right? So they're all basically
what matters is we talk about economic fragmentation, but for countries like us,
countries,
the most serious issue is combined with security. And for that issue, let me stop here because I don't want to go further. But as for the dollar liquidity support, as demonstrated during the global financial crisis and pandemic period, the extending dollar swap lines with 5 international financial centers and the 9 ad hoc temporary swap lines for the 9 non-reserve currencies. That was crucial in restoring the stability.
This is what we're going to be doing tonight, shit like this.
And if another global dollar shortage hits, I believe that the U.S. Fed will extend their swap lines again, which is very important. And but one other problem for a country like us is we know that the U.S. provide ad hoc swap lines as long as there is a global dollar shortage. But issue is what happens if there is our own problem and there is no global dollar shortage. Our understanding is that Fed cannot extend the swap lines in that case, and we have to self-defense ourselves. That is why I think having a adequate, sufficient level of reserves is very important. And listen to you, thanks to the introduction of the FEMA repo facility by the Fed, actually these reserves become much more effective tool to defend ourselves.
Jay Powell, on fragmentation?
Well, I guess I'll just agree with what Chang Yang said, which is, or point out that nothing has changed relative to our swap lines. We still have the same authorities, and we're still prepared to use them in situations where it's within our legal authorities.
10%
and
move
where
right there, nothing crazy.
So we're aware that that's a big contribution that we can and do, and will continue to make to global.
Another project I was keeping an eye on.
How much do you think about fragmentation and the impact this could have on Japan?
Was Jerome Powell talking?
See, on the trade side, I think a lot about what will happen to Asia, even Asia excluding China. So this will depend on the relative tariff rates imposed on the region.
Jerome already has been talking. The lady asked him earlier. Let me mute this real quick.
But
I thought it was going to be just strictly Jerome Powell, but it's basically a lot of the world. Like I said, it's like 7 major countries, basically the all equivalency to Jerome's position of their respective country. He basically, the lady asked, she said, do you guys, what's going on? Do you guys plan on reducing interest rates? The same spiel, and he kind of gave the same thing, indicating that they're kind of waiting to see what the unemployment numbers are. They're looking for a weaker labor market, which this is what I was talking about a little while ago. We have unemployment dropping on Thursday, and it is supposed to tick up a slight point from 4.2 to 4.3%. So he was basically, he's indicating that they're looking for a weaker unemployment, right, labor market. Still kind of, leaning on the whole tariffs at the end, towards the end of the year, inflation might spike, kind of BS, which, I feel like a lot of people are just like, dude, like seriously, it's the same freaking storyline that he keeps saying. So he basically indicated that nothing's changed with the Fed's position in regards to reducing interest rates as of right now. And we brought this up. As of now, July is at 80.9%, stating that there's going to be some kind of a pause is what the markets are calling for. And about 19% are saying potentially some kind of a reduction. But September looks like where we have over 90%, 92% of the market is stating or indicating or anticipating that we might see some reduction in interest rates in September's FOMC meeting. So Bitcoin's doing good. I wish I would have freaking, when I closed my short, I usually will do this a lot of times. When I close my short, usually it means that I'm thinking that we bottomed and we're probably going to see a reversal. For whatever reason, I closed my short and I was at the gym. Didn't even think, why don't you open up a long now? Didn't even think about that until after the fact. And now I'm looking at this like, bruh, these gains that I'm missing here. Craig said that Jerome Powell is political now. You know what, bro? It's hard to read him because I do genuinely think that he is trying to stay neutral. But it is hard, right? It is hard to argue that they reduce interest rates right before an election, right? Inflation was double what it is right now. Double what it is right now. And for whatever reason, they reduce interest rates they reduced interest rates by a whole freaking, remember it was two increments of 25 and 75 basis points on 2 separate occasions, right? So like I said, I want to say that he seems to be not politicalized, but at the same time, it's just like when you see stuff like that right before an election happen, it makes you wonder if he was pressured from the previous administration to potentially do this, and now I think and I know Flip is grinding his gears right now, saying, well, you know what, Trump appointed Jerome Powell, which he did, right? But just because he appointed him doesn't mean that they're friends or they're on the same side or whatsoever. So I don't know. I think it's above all of our pay grade as far as that, but it's hard to argue and not think that, there is some kind of biasness with the Feds right now, just given everything that we see, right? We saw the reduction in interest rates in November, or what was it, right before November, right before the election, and now for the last 7 or 8 months, there's been nothing. There's been absolutely nothing, right? Now that inflation is literally almost at their target. Unemployment hit their target and they keep moving the goalpost, and they're basically, their answer is because of uncertainty and tariffs later in the year is what their reason of what they're doing. So he is talking again.
Later, sooner is better than later. That's what I said last year. There's not a lot more I can say.
For everyone else, how much of a problem for the world are America's public finances?
Hold on.
Governor Rhee.
We have to see what's going to happen. Yeah, but
Then later, how's it going?
We conduct our life, our business, and develop Europe, and I hope for the better.
Chair Powell, last year in Sintra, you said that the U.S. cannot run these kind of deficits in good economic times for very long. And then you also said we'll have to do better sooner, something sooner or later, and sooner will be better than later. How's it going?
So, of course, I probably preface that by saying that we don't comment on fiscal policy. That is the one thing that I have said, and my predecessors
don't go to
have
sleep
said,
because we might have some good buys
federal,
in between now and then.
Fiscal path is not a sustainable one. The level of the debt is sustainable, but the path is not, and we need to address that sooner or later. Sooner is better than later. That's what I said last year. There's not a lot more I can say.
For everyone else, how much of a problem for the world are America's public finances? Governor Rhee?
We have to see what's going to happen. Yeah, but as I mentioned.
Did you hear that? She asked. She said, "What's for everybody else, like the other countries? What?" She's basically saying like America's finances. How's that affect your country? And they're all kind of like giggled because it affects the world, right? Because I mean, however you want to look at it, the U.S. dollar is the strongest currency, the most used currency in the world. So if whatever's going on in the United States essentially will at some point trickle over and affect the global markets, right?
We take it as environment and we just adjust our policies accordingly.
I don't comment on our fiscal policy, let alone anybody else's.
Anyone else want to take that question?
Flip, I think we're all in agreement, right? With
Governor Ueda.
I don't disagree
actually,
with the guy on a lot of things.
you spoke 2 years ago at the ECB conference. It was your first public appearance overseas after taking the current role in April 2023. And you talked about your surprise with the tight schedule of a central governor. Are you getting used to the schedule? Is it ramping up? Is it even more than when you started?
It's still very tight.
Is it tighter than before? How are you finding yourself after more than 2 years in the job?
It's as tight as 2 years ago.
So it hasn't changed?
Getting used to it a little bit, yes. It's a nice thing to do to keep
I just realized they're all doing this in English.
Which is the very foundation of what we do.
Like the guy that was just talking, I think he's from China.
To all of you, what keeps you awake at night, given all of the uncertainties and the changing world? Madame Lagarde.
First of all, I can confirm what Kazuo just said, because it did happen on occasions that the following day, after probably a difficult night, you came to see me and said, "Did you really say that yesterday during the meeting?" And I knew that you had been sort of ruminating and pondered what the consequences were. So it's the truth. It's not a joke. Yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's look at Bitcoin. Looking at the 5-minute right now, you can see we did briefly break above 107. We got up to about 107.2. As of now, we're on a very short time frame right now. We're on the 5-minute. I was gonna say it looks like we're trying to find some support on the 200-day on the 5-minute, but you can see obviously that wasn't even acknowledged. We're seeing somewhat of a cross right here, so I'm sure. Let's see if we're gonna hold this support level at 106,850. Remember, we're looking at the 5-minute short time frame, so don't think that we're crashing or anything like that. I usually tend to, whenever there's like meetings, I didn't mean to pause this actually. Whenever there's meetings like with Jerome Powell, I usually will look at the smaller time frame just to see the big fluctuations. Let's see, is it going to acknowledge this support level, or is it going to just blow right by it? It's trying to. Let's see if there's anything else in the markets going on. Oh, yeah, so yesterday, Senator Loomis pushes for the crypto-friendly amendments in Trump's big, beautiful bill. So if you guys have been following today, they were, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the House is 50-50 right now as far as passing the big, beautiful bill. But I think what they're doing is some amendments on the bill before it does get passed. And you can see U.S. Senator Cynthia Loomis, which is basically, she's like the crypto queen right now. She's been pushing for just everything positive with crypto, with the reserves for Bitcoin. just a lot of regulatory in the space, but just making it a safe spot or a safe space for, crypto traders, right? And also for America to back crypto heavily, right? So you can see Senator Loomis wants to add a crypto tax amendment to President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill to exclude small transactions from capital gains and resolve the double taxation for miners and stakers. You hear that? That's flipping awesome right there. I'll reread that. So U.S. Senator Cynthia Loomis wants to add a crypto tax amendment to the big, beautiful bill, right? That's about to pass. We all know it's going to pass, right? To President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill to exclude small transactions from capital gains and resolve double taxation for miners and stakers. What is a small transaction? Let's see. Please under 100,000. Please under 100,000, right? That'd be awesome. No capital gains basically on any trades. So on June 30th, which was yesterday, Loomis announced her push to insert language into a sweeping budget reconsolidation bill that would overhaul some digital assets and activity and taxed. It's time to stop this unfair tax treatment and ensure America is the world's Bitcoin and crypto superpower. Trump's big, beautiful bill, a more than 1,000-page reconciliation package central to President Trump's economic agenda, includes sweeping fiscal and regulatory measures and has become a high-stakes priority for Republican lawmakers ahead of a self-imposed Friday deadline. The proposed amendment includes a de minimis exemption for crypto transactions under $300. Oh, okay, under $300. Well, you know what? That means we can just do a bunch of small transactions. Like if you're going to sell 10 grand, you're going to have to do it a bunch, but you just sell a bunch of $299 transactions, right? And changes to how staking and mining rewards are taxed, aligning them with the point of sale rather than time of receipt. And documents shared with crypto media, Loomis' office outlined key elements of the proposal, including a $300 threshold on individual transactions and $5,000 in annual cap on total tax-free activity. That's pretty dope. So you see that? So they're basically saying a $300 threshold on individual transactions, right? Anything under $300 wouldn't be subject to capital gains. And then basically they're putting an annual cap of $5,000 annually, right? So like I said, if you technically only were trading about $5,000 in a year, if you sold it in $299 increments and it was less than $5,000 in the whole year, you wouldn't have to pay any capital gains whatsoever on any of the profits that you made. That's pretty dope. It also aims to eliminate what industry advocates describe as a double taxation, where digital asset holders are taxed both when they receive staking or mining rewards, and again when they sell those assets. Excuse me. So if you understand that, basically they're saying that right now if you're staking, right, you're getting APY, back off your whatever your investment is. You're technically supposed to pay taxes on whatever APY you're receiving, and then basically whenever, let's say you unstake, let's say you have Ethereum, you have it staked, you've been getting residuals back, right? You're getting APY back for your Ethereum that's staked. All right, great. Ethereum's making all-time highs. You're gonna take it. You're unstaking your Ethereum. Now you want to sell your Ethereum. Well, you're paying double tax right now, right? Because you're getting staked, or you're getting tax off of your staking rewards. On top of that, when you go to sell the actual asset, you're going to pay taxes on that. They're calling it double taxation. They're looking to eliminate something like that. So, and then further, the amendment includes language addressing the tax treatment for crypto lending, wash sales, and charitable contributes. The goal, according to Loomis and industry backers, is to remove outdated tax barriers that have discouraged everyday use and long-term holding for the digital assets. Crypto groups, including the Bitcoin Policy Institute and Solana Policy Institute, along with prominent industry figures such as Michael Saylor, have publicly endorsed the amendment. That's dope. That's big right there, guys. I mean, that right there, to me, it seems like that would be big for this, for the small guy, right? The small guy that's, maybe trading a few $1,000s every year. Now, if they make maybe $2,000, they don't owe 50% of it back to the government. They can actually keep a large chunk and continue to incentivize them to trade. It's always, it kills me when, you make some good money off of your investments, whether it's crypto, stocks, or whatever. And the fact that because you maybe have traded it a little bit before a threshold, now you owe them so much more, right? It discourages you to want to freaking trade because you just made $10,000 and you owe the government $5,000 of that. I just think it's honestly, in my opinion, I think it's crap, in my opinion. But I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole another time. As far as with taxes, I don't mind paying taxes, but some of these taxes on just everyday, not even just with investments, but with everything is just outrageous in my opinion. So Flip, let's see what Flip's got to say here. So Powell is thin-skinned going into the election. Republicans and Trump said that the economy was going down and awful, and inflation was bad and getting worse. So I think he cut rates on schedule. All right. And then he said, I really don't think it's political. He should be cutting rates on schedule. I agree with you, brother. And I won't disagree with that statement. Like I said, this is all speculation. Like I said before, it's hard to argue that it's not political when you see the timing of the reductions of the interest rates right before the election. But at the same time, we don't know what the hell is going on in the back end. We don't know what's driving him to make these decisions whatsoever. It might look political. Like you said, it might have already been planned or scheduled or whatever the case is. So, it is what it is. That's why I try to, you get frustrated with some of this shit, but I try not to sit there and because at the end of the day, I don't even know what's going on, right? None of us really know exactly what's going on. I think, like I said, the agreement that we all have, Powell's talking, the agreement that we all have is that we just want to see interest rates starting to get reduced, right? I think that's the agreement that we all have. Let me see. Powell's talking here.
Base capital and
let me.
On rolling back capital rules, would that actually meaningfully improve liquidity in the Treasury market?
I do fully support what we in fact voted for, what we put out for comment, which is sort of putting the leverage ratio back where it should be, which is a backstop to risk-based capital. And so yes to that question. Let me say on stable coins, if I can.
Yeah.
I do share the concerns that you hear here, but I also think it's a positive step that we don't have a regulatory framework for these now in the United States. We tried very hard in the last Congress to work with, people on both sides of the aisle to create such a thing. Now it looks like we're well on the way to creating a framework, which I think is something we need. If we're going to have stable coins, and apparently we need to have a federal and state level regulatory framework, which I think we're making progress towards having.
That's big.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but
right
many of you have plenty of time left in office. Others will leave sooner. Knowing what you know today, Governor Ueda, if you already had to offer some advice to your successor, whoever that may be.
We've already talked about it. I think basically going back to the Genius Act, right, with with the stable coins and stuff like that. I mean, it's definitely, we already know it's here, right? We already know it's here. Stable coins are going to be basically, injected into the economy. And another thing too is with stable coins, I'm trying to understand it. So I won't talk about it much, but I know that with stable coins, getting into the picture. I know with the U.S. debt, it's going to help out the U.S. economy a lot because you're talking about stable coins being pegged to the dollar worldwide, right? And basically with the United States implementing this into our economy, I'm pretty sure this is going to help with our debt. I have to read into it more, but I'm pretty sure that this is going to be nothing but a big game changer, I think, down the road for crypto, obviously given with stable coins and stuff like that. So, and obviously you see Jerome Powell, he's already saying it's here, they've already pretty much passed the Genius Act and stuff like that. It's when is it going to be rolled out, but it's pretty much here. So So looking at Bitcoin, I guess so far we've had somewhat of a little bounce. We ran up to about 107.2. Would have been a good little spot for a short, but it is what it is. Right now, where are we going to bottom out? Let's see. Who knows? Let me back up a little bit out of this freaking 5-minute chart. And let's look at some spots where we do have some support as of now. I don't know if I have it on this chart, but hey, pup. But as of now, I mean, it looks like as of now, for this morning, us bottoming out, we bottomed so far around 106,300. We're at around 106.5. Are we going to probably come down? Potentially, right? We do have, it already dropped. The JOLTS job openings did drop earlier. So IMS manufacturing actually came up. JOLTS job opening came up as well. So not too bad. That might have been why we saw a little bit of an influx towards the upside. I think the markets are anticipating this unemployment that's going to be dropping in about 2 days from now as well. So I've said this yesterday. I'll say it again. I expect some up and down volatility as of now. If we do see these spurts towards the upside, I think they're going to be short-lived for right now just because of the market. If unemployment, believe it or not, if unemployment comes in lower or higher than expected, I think the markets might potentially rally off of that, given with the whole inflation situation with Jerome Powell, interest rates. They're looking to see unemployment, unfortunately, come up as they want to make their decision. So for now, just keep an eye out. This 106.3 area right now has been our bottom. Other than that, finding some kind of a bottom. Oh, you know what? There is a support level right here. So if you guys can see, I'm looking back at a couple times where we've bounced or we've hit our head. And this 106,160 seems to be a spot that we've previously, you can see, we've hit our head multiple times on this area. Look at that, multiple times on this area. So I wouldn't be surprised if this the 106,160 area finds it as some kind of support, for now. So, and we might end up staying in this channel right here at around 106 and topping out maybe at the higher 106 levels, 106,800 for now. So, but with that being said, guys, that's pretty much it. It looks like the meeting finally ended. I'm looking at the other screen. So we've pretty much covered everything with Jerome Powell in the markets for today. With that being said, guys, have a fantastic day today. My members, we are going to be we're going to be heading to the trenches tonight, later on today. I will drop the time and everything like that in the Discord. So stay tuned. Be ready. If you need help with your Phantom or Soulfire wallets, we'll go through that on our members only stream as well. So with that, guys, have a safe, productive day today. Go out, grind, get some money. Keep yourself off the charts for a little while because I think we're going to be maybe dropping down for a little while. So other than that, guys, have a fantastic day. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I'll see you guys a little later on today. All right, guys?